Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. So I'm going to talk to you today about the State Road Acceptance Program and our residential street sign program. So, first slide. We still doing environmental?
Yes.
Just kidding. So,
Wow, Mr. Chairman, I don't know about that. Need a warm-up for jokes like that.
So my portion of our environmental stewardship agenda today is to focus on the Upper Swift Creek watershed and some of the things that we do to protect the watershed during development, some of the other little activities that we've had going on over the last several years, and then kind of wrap things up. So during development in the Upper Swift Creek watershed, we have more stringent requirements during construction. So sediment basins that get constructed on site that are temporary, we require those to be 25% larger than standard in other parts of the county and the state. We also require a super silt fence or a similar type of product. And then also polyacrylamide, acronym is PAM. It's a polymer-based chemical that when applied to the soil or put in socks, kind of as you see, like right there, it helps trap sediment and polymer from leaving the sediment basins. Then also sometimes we might require a hydro seed to be used to help establish vegetation quicker and reduce runoff. So those are things that we have required over the last decade or so, 15 years, to help reduce the amount of sediment and runoff during the construction process. RPA Re-plantings. So this one here is at the landings. This was initiated by the HOA. They planted over 257 plants, over 26 species. This was over the last year. They worked with our water quality section in identifying these species and a planting plan. So that was great on their part. This is after the plants have gotten established a little more. This is out at Brandermill, Sunday Park. You might recognize one of these guys here in this photo. There's an area down close to the water that's really tough to get vegetation established. So the HOA and or the Brandermill Association and the county worked together and came up with these planter boxes all along the shoreline there to get some vegetation established and tree canopy established closer down to the walking path and the reservoir. The trees, the shrubs planted in there were red buds and service berries, and then there was a variety of perennials and ferns planted underneath them. This is Lake Armistead at Charter Colony. This was one of the projects that we did several years ago for our Bay TMDL compliance, but it also benefits the reservoir. This BMP stormwater pond removes 164 pounds of phosphorus a year. That's phosphorus. It's not getting into the reservoir and causing algal blooms and associated pollution. So it's worked really well, and it was a great project all around. In 2019, we updated our tree canopy ordinance. So we included a variety of new requirements in the existing tree canopy ordinance. So these two items here were already in the ordinance, and these three items here were added. So we added 10% tree canopy for very dense residential developments. So, units of 20 or more per acre have a new requirement for at least 10% tree canopy on site. Also, for commercial or industrial properties, we have a requirement for 10% tree canopy. And then lastly, street trees are now required for new subdivisions in the Upper Swift Creek watershed. So, when you get this tree canopy over top of the roadways, it slows down the precipitation events and the amount of runoff coming off of that impervious area. So there's a significant benefit when you can get those street trees over top of that impervious area in our subdivisions. And then lastly, to sum it up, the water quality in the reservoir remains excellent. It's a very complex ecosystem and watershed. We have, very high density in some areas, a lot of suburban development. In addition, we have the invasive species hydrilla that we have to deal with. The utilities department has done an excellent job of managing that over the last several years between balancing, the aesthetics and the community's, concerns with the water quality component to maintain, having it removed on a regular basis, but not having a negative impact on the water quality by removing it. So they've done a really good job. George and Dave Soroy, as you met earlier, have really done a good job managing that program. So I want to give a shout out to them for doing that. The state has guidelines for man-made reservoirs and lakes. And, they classify them as impaired or not impaired. And the Swift Creek Reservoir, being a developed watershed and so forth, it has not been on that impaired list. The cutoff for that criteria is 40 micrograms per liter of phosphorus. And the last 3 years, we have been below that in the 0.3 range. So we continue to maintain excellent water quality in the reservoir. I think the tools that we have in place are working well. We just need to make sure we continue to use them and keep our eye on the ball, so to speak. So I'll answer any questions you might have at this time.
Sure. Yes, Ms. Winslow.
Scott, so when you talk about the tools that we have and using them, can you just kind of go into where the pressures are and what you're seeing in environmental engineering and anything maybe we need to know about in terms of maybe looking at enforcement or looking at ordinances?
So I think one of the things that you all deal with on a regular basis are the, new residential developments and making sure that we have all the mechanisms in place as I just described, and many of those are just a natural part of our process. We've had some big cases over the last couple years. I think we have some opportunities to take some steps to ensure water quality for many decades to come. And, we could get into those if you like, or.
One of those I think you may be alluding to is conservation easements. I know we talked about doing some of those in the past and keeping pristine some areas that are in the watershed. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, I think there's an opportunity to, look at some of that area, particularly, around the Horsepen Creek area, that we could, set some land aside in a conservation easement, and that would, leaving it in a natural state would, provide a water quality buffer for many decades to come.
I think that's something, and I don't want to speak for the rest of the board members up here, but I think we'd like to, see some recommendations. I sure would like to see some recommendations on that front from your staff and take a look at them, because I do think, always looking toward the future, we need to make sure we're doing the right thing. And we're obviously very pleased with the quality of the water in the reservoir. Everyone around the reservoir depends on that water for their drinking water, and so it's very important that we keep our eye on the prize on that. We do thank our great utilities department as well for their work, and as well as the hydrilla management group and your team for all the work they do. And these RPA plantings certainly help this effort out as well. So anyway,
Yeah,
sorry, I threw that out there.
if I may, yeah, tee me up, thank you. If I may, Mr. Chairman, I certainly want to thank you, Scott, for all the good work you've done. And I want to ask about the Fallen Creek Reservoir. Our friends over there, I know I haven't seen them lately, but I'd like to know how things are going over there in regards to what we have attempted to do and where we need to go from there. And certainly I concur with Mr. Winslow in your assessment of getting information.
So we've had some challenges with that project for the award, the contracted award that took place before. That contract is no longer in place, and we are in the process of rebidding some of that work. So it's been challenging, to say the least, but you know, we're still moving ahead, and the community's been very patient with that project, and we appreciate that. So we will have a bid out shortly to restart some of that work.
Thank you, and keep me apprised of the efforts as you go forward, please.
Another follow-up related to the water quality, 2018, 2020, we had historic rainfalls. For those of you that walked some of the Upper Mag site, you remember seeing the streams. That was a natural, pristine area. You remember some of the erosion, those sediments. That whole area is highly erodible. So when you think about 2018, 2020, two of the top 4 rainiest years in 120 years, and the fact that, with all the development we have going on in that watershed, that we were still able to maintain good water quality, I think it says a lot about, the mechanisms we have in place and ensuring that those are working correctly, not only for construction activities, but also developments that are built out and we're maintaining those BMPs. So I don't think that's to be understated.
Scott, just a follow-up question to what Mr. Winslow brought up, because there may be some people who really don't understand what a conservation easement is or does. Can you speak a little bit to that for those who are watching at home?
Yeah, so there's a variety of ways that could be enacted. It could be a conservation easement that is in perpetuity, that the land isn't to be developed in any mechanism. You may allow silviculture, tree harvesting in limited ways. You may not. So there's a variety of ways you could do that, but basically you're setting it aside to never be developed. That's the best way to sum it up.
Thank you.
All right, I think Ted Barkley from Code Enforcement.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Casey. I'm Ted Barkley with the Community Enhancement Department, and I'm here to talk trash with you. One of the hallmarks of good
That was a
environmental...
better joke, by the
Yeah,
way.
it wasn't as good as his.
I have to give it to you. That's kudos to you on that one. You're on top of it. So, good job, Mr. Barkley.
One of the
You ought to be able
hallmarks...
to bag this up quickly, huh?
Yeah. One of the hallmarks of good environmental stewardship is reducing pollution, obviously. Chesterfield County does that with a vigorous anti-litter program. As litter degrades, it causes pollution in the soil and air. Litter is also harmful to wildlife. They can digest it and also get ensnarled with it. Our anti-litter program ensures litter and trash are properly disposed of and help improve the appearance of the county. In 2022, we removed almost 250,000 pounds of litter. And to help conceptualize how big that number is, it's a little more than the size of the space shuttle and a little less than the size of the Statue of Liberty, just to give you a perspective on how much litter we remove from the county each year. To make that happen, we work with a number of partners, combination of county staff, contractors, and volunteers. And it's important here to point out that, and I can't emphasize this enough, it wouldn't be possible without the volunteers, folks like these folks here, that get out on the weekends and clean up the litter. It would be overwhelming for just county staff to try to do it on our own. The sheriff's workforce, we couldn't do it without the sheriff's assistance. The court system with their Adopt a Highway program for the folks that get in a little bit of trouble, they have to get out there and pick up litter. It's tremendous assistance to us that the county's court system assists us with that program. And like I said, the folks with the Adopt a Spot. These folks right here, by the way, that's the Junior Federated Women's Club. They did a trash-a-thon in 2002. Next slide. A large part of the program that we also do focuses on roadways, gateways, and other highly visible areas of the county. And you kind of ask why these places. It's where the litter is, and it's where it's where it's most visible. We operate on the theory that if people see the litter on the ground, they think that it's okay and that no one cares, and they will continue to litter. So we try to keep those areas clean to try to emphasize that this is not okay. And it's something that we implore citizens to not continue to litter. It's not only bad for the environment, it's not attractive, and it also costs money to have folks go out there and clean it up. So like I said, we implore citizens not to litter. And we do a number of educational programs throughout the year to try to bring that message out to the folks.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yeah.
that's an excellent point, because I've had that recommendation from citizens about maybe we should do more signage in maybe other languages that might be helpful in certain areas, because I do receive that, and it's very annoying to me to see trash when I travel about the district. Very annoying. I want to almost get out my car and just pick it up. It's just that annoying to me. But I appreciate any recommendations, ideas that you may have in that area, so I just want to share that briefly.
It's good suggestions, Mr. Allen. We have a schedule that tries to cover these places every 4 weeks. As the county develops, the amount of litter in places that we have to cover grows, obviously. We've supplemented some of our efforts in places of particular interest. The image on the left here is an example of that. It's a particular section of Hopkins Road. Mr. Allen, you may be familiar. This is where we routinely pick up a high volume of litter. And to that end, we've also added a new sidewalk along here that connects several schools and commercial areas with residential areas. And we're picking up litter along this area every 2 weeks. And we're using some of the Dale District Enhancement Capital Improvement Funds to make this feasible. And we thank you for that. On the right, you can see an example of where we've expanded our efforts in some of the county's neighborhoods. Throughout the spring and fall, we sponsor neighborhood cleanups. And these events engage neighborhoods and remove bulk waste and trees from our older neighborhoods, and they help maintain their appearance and viability and livability. In addition to removing litter, the county is also, next slide, making a positive environmental impact in medians and right-of-ways. As you know, most of these areas are maintained by VDOT, but since most are just open areas with scrub grass, they give the county an opportunity to beautify these highly visible areas, increase tree canopy and low vegetation, hopefully have a positive impact on traffic safety as well. These projects got started in 2010 along Midlothian Turnpike within the Midlothian Initiative to revitalize the right-of-way, which is a systematic approach to plant and maintain enhanced medians in major commercial corridors. I'm sure you've seen the improved medians along Midlothian Turnpike. To that end, we are, over the last 5 years, we've had a number of planning projects in the Clover Hill District along Hull Street and Courthouse and Lux Lane. And the pictures above, you got the courthouse, the Lux Lane project is on the right, and you've also got some new plantings we just did recently along Hull Street.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. And
Yes.
I appreciate this so much, and you know I got some more tree projects coming for you.
You
so
do.
don't even worry about that. I got it all mapped out in my brain. I just haven't put it on paper yet. I did want to ask, just quickly, going back to trash.
Yes.
VDOT also picks up trash, correct?
They do.
And what is there coordination between VDOT and the county on trash that they're picking up? What's that conversation?
We do coordinate, yeah. Now, VDOT will typically do a trash pickup right before they cut the grass. So they're not cutting up the litter because that would make a mess. So they go through and clean up, then they cut. So every time they do an area where they're going to cut, they come through a week or so before and clean up the litter. In the fall and winter, when they're not cutting grass, they do have an approach where they go clean up certain areas. And we can work with them so that we're not double picking up the same area. We wouldn't want to pick up an area and then they can come by a week later and send their crew out there. So we coordinate with them so we make sure that we're not picking up in the same areas they are.
I don't know if anybody else notices this, but to me, the worst areas seem to be on and off ramps.
Right, off ramps. Mhm.
And I don't know, it's maybe if we were to do some signage in coordination with VDOT on that area, it might make someone think twice about dumping there. I mean, it just seems to happen all the time, and it's ugly and unsightly, and we can do better. And I just think maybe, hopefully, people just need a reminder, but that would be an optimum place for some signage there, Mr. Holland.
Yeah, I can fully concur, because I see the same thing in other areas where I travel, not just Chesterfield, but in other counties. I see the same thing at those ramps, and so that's an area of particular concern. And I think the coordination is the key, and then signage might be helpful, I would say. So certainly, we welcome that change and improvement, because we want to make sure the county is welcoming, because many citizens may see it for the first time that travel to some of our facilities, and we want it to be pristine, very, very clean.
Yeah, good
Good,
suggestions.
Mr. Engel.
Mr. Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To follow up on Mr. Winslow's question, isn't all of the trash and all of the mowing VDOT's responsibility, and we are supplementing their work for them, and we're not sending them a bill that, but all of this is actually, they're required to do this. So everything we're doing is because we don't believe that the roads are being maintained to the standard that our citizens deserve. But it is VDOT's responsibility, not ours, correct?
It is, but as you just astutely pointed out, we prefer to provide a higher level of service to the citizens of Chesterfield to make sure that those areas are kept clean.
I just want to make sure, because we do, traffic, and not necessarily traffic, volume of traffic, but the way people drive in different areas, and trash and cutting the grass are actually some of the most common things that we get complaints about. And the trash itself and the mowing itself are really state responsibilities. And so I can't overstate enough that we are going above and beyond what the state should be maintaining so that we can give a better quality. And it still, unfortunately, sometimes leaves something to be desired at our exits in some of our roads. But it's not for lack of us working in multi-facets to be able to supplement the work that VDOT should be doing.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Casey.
Dr. Casey?
I just, regarding the off-ramps and the trash, I think, and I've read this somewhere before, but it's worthy of a follow-up discussion even with VDOT. I think there's a perception, that that's state property, public property, not private property that might be abutting other road networks. And so it's still the wrong thing to do, but people in their mindset, they may not be littering into what is private property as much as thinking that the state property is their garbage can, for lack of a technical term. But signage may help, but, for whatever reasons, people think they can just throw trash into public property. It's from what I've read and discussed with others in the past.
It's extremely frustrating, as you all know. And there's been a national, state, and local campaign about littering since the 70s. And we continue to work on that effort, trying to convince folks not to do this and implore them not to. Because again, it's not only unattractive, it could clog up drainage systems if left unattended. Like I said, unattractive, as well as a potential health issue. So we do our best to keep it cleaned up. Back to the public improvement programs. Projects got started in 2010 along the Lothian Turnpike, but over the last 5 years, we are adding new planning projects, including sections coming up in the spring, more on Hull Street as well as Woolridge Road. Sidewalk maintenance, as Mr. Engel pointed out, it's important to note there are a lot of maintenance that goes along with these things. Plantings need to be watered, trimmed, and replaced as needed. It's part of the county's commitment to maintaining public assets. Good example, sidewalks. Chesterfield County has a large number of sidewalks. those assets require periodic landscaping and mowing to ensure they remain usable by the public and remain attractive. And we do step up where VDOT is unable to do what needs to be done to keep those things maintained. And we've got staff that are doing a really yeoman's work out there trying to get it cut. And I brought two folks with me who are the boots on the ground that have lifted the equivalent of a space shuttle over the past year. And I'd like to introduce them if I could. We've got
Please do.
Summer Benton and Calvin Venata. These are the folks that, if you happen to see them out there, they're the ones out there doing the work. That's all I have. If you have any questions? If not, I will turn it over to Fuller.
Just
Sir.
really quickly, I mean, it is easy to fall into the trap that it is someone else's responsibility, and how important it is that when you see it, pick it up. I'm like with Mr. Holland in that my wife is tired of me when we're going for a walk and I'm picking up trash or bringing a plastic bag with me as we're going through. But ultimately, it's easy to say it's someone else's responsibility. It's all our responsibility.
It is, and again, I can't emphasize how important it is for volunteers through our Adopt a Spot program that the first slide you saw. Folks like those that go out on the weekends and help, and individuals that do it on their own, you know, not through an organization, that they just go out when they walk their dog and they're walking through public areas and clean up. We couldn't keep it as clean as we have it without that assistance, and we're more than grateful and thankful for that help.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just want to thank you for your efforts, and thank you for your efforts. And anything I can do to support you, please let me know, because I'm fully committed to having a really, really clean area, free of trash. So anything I need to do, additional resources we needed, let's just get it done. Let's do it. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very
I'm going to
much.
turn this over to Fuller. Thanks.